Welcome to Afro-Latino World. My name is Courtney Hall, and on today's episode, our own Sarah Valdez, president of Afro-Latino World, will be chatting with Elizabeth Nunez. Elizabeth Nunez is the award-winning author of a memoir, Not for Everyone Everyday Use, and 10 novels including Even in Paradise, Boundary, Prospero's Daughter, Grace, and Bruised Hibiscus. 4 of Miss Nunez's novels were selected as New York Times Editor's Choice. Miss Nunez is the co-founder of the National Black Writers Conference and is executive producer of the New York Emmy-nominated Cutty TV series Black Writers in America. Nunez received a PhD in English literature from New York University and is a distinguished professor at Hunter College City University of New York, where she teaches courses on creative writing fiction and Caribbean women writers. Please welcome Ms. Nunez and our president of Afro-Latino World, Sarah Valdez, and enjoy the interview.
Hello, everybody in Afro-Latino World, here again for another chapter. I wanted to introduce a great book author, Elizabeth Nunez. And Nunez, how are you?
I am very happy to be here to Afro-Latino World, to be interviewed by you, Sarah. It is an honor. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to interview you. So let's just jump straight into the questions. Well, the first question that we wanted to ask you, Elizabeth, who are some Black women writers that have inspired you and your work?
Well, Sarah, I have to tell you that when I started to write, there were no Caribbean women writers that I knew of. All the Caribbean writers were male. All the female writers, because Trinidad, of course, was a colony of England, all the female writers were white English. There was one Caribbean woman writer, Sylvia Winter, who wrote one novel, The Hills of Hebron, but very soon she went into an academic life and she never wrote again. So then I would have to say that that was a difficulty for me to write, to be able to write without seeing a model, so seeing how it was possible. But then I would add Paul Marshall, Brown Girl, Brown Stones. She was a Caribbean American writer. And then, of course, the great Toni Morrison. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. What do you hope your audience takes away from reading your novels?
Well, there are 2 themes that I'm very passionate about. And one of them is the effect of colonialism on islands and countries that have been like mine, which was Trinidad and Tobago, that had been colonized. I think that one would think, okay, you got political independence, everything is okay, but that's not true. The British have done a great job in making people who have been in their colonized country begin to think of them as superior. So one of the things I write about a lot is what has been the effect of colonialism. And the second theme that I find I repeat over and over is this tension between Caribbean American immigrants and African Americans. What is the basis for that tension? Is it real? Can it be corrected, remediated? What hope there is for it? And then I'm very interested in our common humanity. I believe that there is one race, the human race. If you needed a heart transplant, it wouldn't matter who you got it from. If you needed a blood transfusion, it wouldn't matter the ethnicity or the color of the person. So I think what we really have is colorism, discrimination based on the shades of color. And I don't think that's only put for people who are Black, whatever. I think you see that same problem in the Chinese community, in the Japanese community, in the Indian community, in the European community. It's not by accident most of our anchors on TV have blonde hair and blue eyes, because they also have a hierarchy based on color.
Right.
So I'm very interested in colorism. I'm very interested in knocking down this notion of race, since it's a social construct and that we are all belong to the same human race. And what the problem is aesthetics. The problem is that no matter what the ethnic group is, no matter what the geographic group is, you're going to find colorism. You're going to find discrimination based on it. Now you may ask, how do you decide how do we come to the conclusion that lighter is better and darker is not?
Correct. I mean, we all know now, a lot of us have learned late. We know now that that's all social construct. And
yes, very much so.
It's a reason why, the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, right?
Right.
But now that we're talking, I wanted to extend that. Have you ever faced any pushbacks or rejections because of your work centers of the experience of Black women?
I would say yes. I would say it has not been overt. No one has said that to me. But I could see the difficulties that I have had in getting my work published. And even when I do get it published, I can see the little effort made by the publishing company to distribute and market my work. Sometimes when I'm published by a small publisher, for example, a Akashic Press, they are limited in what they can do. They don't have the same kinds of resources that a mainstream publisher has. And when I tried to dip back into mainstream publishing, which is where I was for my first 4 or 5 novels, they bring up the question of numbers. Oh, I like your work, Elizabeth, but I don't have the numbers. By that, they mean the number of books sold. And of course, publishers could always make that excuse because they are a business.
Right.
And they are about getting. So to answer your question, no, I haven't. It has not been overt, but it has been very frustrating for writers like me, writers of color like me, who publishers will just say, your numbers are too low. I can't take a risk on you. Now, why is that? Is it because the publishers are not doing the same due diligence in promoting the works of writers of color? Or is it because, and Sarah, this is not easy for me to say, is it because readers of color, while they appreciate and praise and honor writers of color, they don't seem to realize that they can censor a writer anytime they want. So it's not enough to say, I like your book. You have to buy the book.
Support.
Because buying the book, it's not, I heard you say the word support. Yes, support. But it's not just support. It's something very simple as purchasing the book. Because when you purchase the book, you raise the number of books sold for that writer. And then publishers will say, okay, we publish this book because there's an audience.
There's an audience.
Yeah. So I do appreciate getting compliments from readers of color, but sometimes I get frustrated because that does not translate into their willingness to purchase the book. And so I feel very much, looking at platforms such as the one you have, I feel very much that we need to educate the Black reader or the reader of color to get them to understand the power they hold in terms of censoring a writer, because publishers are interested in numbers. That's what they're interested in. They would sell Jell-O if there are enough people buying red Jell-O. They would sell it. So part of their excuse is understandable, and part of their excuse is not understandable.
How do you think writing can be used as a tool for social and political change?
Well, we're seeing an example of that right now. The effort and the movement to ban books is an understanding of the power of books. You would not ban books if books had no power. You would not say books can't be in, certain books can't be in the library if books had no power. If they had no power, why would you care? But the politicians and the people who go around listing books to ban them understand that books have power. Why? Because books tell story. And why? Because from time immemorial, story is what moves us as human beings. Story is what fires our imagination. Story is what inspires us to move, to act, to do something. And so you can start with the Bible and you can go all the way down every single movement that we have had. And I will sort of narrow it to the movement that affected the decolonization of the Caribbean or in America. So you have books like Frantz Fanon, by Frantz Fanon, the Martinican, who talked about the psychology of colonialism that affected the way we think about it. You could think of Black writers like James Baldwin. You could think of a current writer, the Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the World and Me, who's talking about the need for reparations. Yes, you would want to ban those books. You want to put them high up on the shelf. Why? Because books have more power than anything else. When you're reading a book, it's not like watching a movie. When you're reading a book, you're reading it. It's a silent interaction between you and the word. And that's power.
Beautiful. What advice would you give to other Black women who inspire to become a writer?
Well, one of the things I'd say you must have heard a million times, read, 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 read. I don't care if you have a Mercedes Benz, it is not going to leave your garage until you put fuel in it. So as much as you, so analogously, as much as you may want to write, as much as what you think you have the talent for writing, it's not going to happen until you put fuel, and that fuel is the books by other writers. It will give you ideas of language, of vocabulary, about the craft of writing. Writing has a craft. If you want to write memoir, there's a craft. If you want to write fiction, there's a craft. If you want to write screenwriting or drama, whatever, poetry, whatever the genre is, it's a craft. And that is the fuel you need, and you get it from reading. So you've heard that every day, a lot of times. The other thing is that once you start writing, you have to write every day. That doesn't mean that you write tons of stuff. It means that even if it's a sentence, it means that even when you're quiet and you're walking, you're thinking about the writing. Because once you start a project, you're entering a dream, an imaginary dream. And if you stop writing, you break that dream. And you may come back again, but it's not the same thing. So the second thing I would say is you have to write every day. And I'm not saying you have to write lots of it, maybe just a sentence, but you have to write. And probably something I didn't learn is that you have to build an audience. And there we are talking about social media that I'm no good at. But because publishers look for numbers, if you can go to a publisher and say, look, I have so many people following me, they are more likely to pay attention to. And just one more thing. If in my area, I'm writing fiction, and writing a novel is like climbing Mount Everest, and it may seem so daunting. So don't look all the way to the top of the mountain. Say something like, I'm going to write 300 words a day. And that's doable. I'm not going to write them every day of the week. I'm going to write 300 words a day, 4 days a week. If you multiply that, you will see very soon you will have a 70,000 word novel.
Beautiful. And the last question that I wanted to ask you, I asked this to all my women writers. What words of inspirations or any quotes that you would like to share with us?
Oh dear.
Every Black girl in the world for inspiration.
Ooh. I guess I would say, in terms of writing,
Whatever you want it, whatever direction you want to take.
Oh, well, I can say two things. One of them that has kept me going all my life is what my father used to say to all his children. He used to say, you know, bats, when they fall on a tree, if you live in the Caribbean and you see bats falling, they fall with their head, right? And their feet up. And my father used to say to us, you're not a bat. When you fall, you don't fall on your head and get knocked down. You fall on your feet and you jump back up. So that's always helped me through the bad times. I say I fall. I know I'm going to fall. It's part of the human condition, but I'm not a bat. I fall on my feet and I jump back up.
Beautiful, beautiful, wise words. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking the time from your busy schedule to do this interview. We truly appreciate you.
You're most welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. And everybody in Afro-Latina world, we see you next time in our interviews.